usually what's done is some form of dimensionality reduction is applied to the raw co-occurrence counts, which has the effect of compressing the original input space into a lower dimensional representation that magnifies differences and similarities between the words in the original original space based on the contexts in which they occur. So in the resulting dimensionality reduced compressed space, two words such as eagles and falcons that never occur together in the same context will be brought together in their similarity, in their representation, because they both occur with the same word, say fly, for instance. So one way this kind of generalization is done, this latent representation or this more abstract representation is induced is probabilistically. So one approach is carried out by Griffith and Stivers and Tenenbaum in the topics model, where the word by document matrix is decomposed into two separate matrices. One giving you the conditional probability of each word given some topic, and then another matrix giving you the conditional probability of a topic given a document. Now here, the key thing to note is that the topic is a latent variable, and it is induced during encoding while the system is learning these two matrices, these two conditional distributions. The latent representation has to be inferred during that process. Another approach has been the Wartvec neural embedding approach, where in the same sense, you have a window over a text corpus that slides through. And at each point, you take the center word to be a target and the word surrounding it to be its context. And the system in the skipgram version learns to predict the context given the item or the target. So for example, if the target is chased and the contexts are the cat and squirrel, the system is trained to maximize the conditional probability of each of those context words given the target word. Furthermore, the system is also simultaneously minimizing the conditional probability of a set of randomly sampled context words given the same target word. And so the system simultaneously minimizes and maximizes these two conditional probability sets. The key thing with Wartvec is that the original input, which is a localist representation where each node is either 0 or 1 based on whether a given word, say, is present, that is compressed through this lower dimensional hidden layer, which has the effect of magnifying the similarities and differences between the words in the original space. It gives you a continuous representation. Now, both the topics model and the Wartvec approach, although they use various differences, they have differences in their theoretical assumptions. They both assume that some kind of generic representation is formed during encoding. So in Wartvec, for example, you compress the original input to form this latent hidden layer representation, whereas in the topics model, you have to infer the existence of the latent topic variable distribution. Now, focusing mainly on Wartvec, one of the main issues with systems that use dimensionality reduction, say at encoding, is that although compressing the original space magnifies the similarities and differences, it also leaves the system vulnerable to catastrophic interference. So for example, if you learn how to count, say, add 2-digit numbers you don't forget how to add single-digit numbers, but this is a famous case that's been shown with these kinds of networks where the system first learns to add single-digit numbers, and it can do that very well, but once it learns how to add two-digit numbers, it forgets everything about the single-digit numbers, and that's far from the case in people. In addition, these systems are also not capable of one-shot learning. So people can learn an association, say, between two concepts after a single exposure, whereas a neural net approach like Wartvec requires multiple epochs through the same text corpus to capture the same kind of structure. So we propose a return to a previously perhaps more biologically plausible learning system, and this is essentially a Hebbian system. The Hebbian learning rule essentially goes by the motto, what fires together wires together. So essentially, whenever you see two items or items occur within the same context, you simply associate them in the network. You increment their associative strength. So if you see eagles and fly, with the two become connected. Likewise with eagles and feathers and falcons and fly. Now, what's critical in the system is that we only encode the specific event level details. We don't include any kind of generalization in the original encoding. Generalization takes place at retrieval instead. So, for example, if we want to cue the system with the word eagles, we'll activate that node, and then the activation from that node spreads until the network settles to a steady state, and we take that steady state to be the retrieved representation for eagles. And in such a way, we can use, say, the word eagles to activate the word falcons without having a direct association, simply due to the network effects. More specifically, one way you can think about generalization in our system is through triadic closure. So a triad is essentially three nodes. For example, eagles, fly, and falcons, they form three nodes, but only fly is only connected to eagles and falcons, and falcons isn't connected to eagles, but through triadic closure, you get that sort of induced relationship between eagles and falcons. So just to sum things up, we only encode the event level, specific details. So these are the direct associations. This enables the system to learn with one shot. And we generalize during retrieval using a memory queue. This makes the system more dynamic and context dependent in its formation of semantic representations. So what is our representation exactly? So in the same sense, same way Wartvec does this, we simply slide a window through text, taking the center word to be the target and the surrounding words to be its context with which we increment its co-occurrence. Once we encode this information into instead of a word by document, we encode this into a word by word matrix, which makes it so that we don't need document delimiters in our original input. We take these co-occurrences and we normalize them using the shifted positive pointwise mutual information. So just a brief note on the shifted positive PMI, which really the main thing to note about this this equation, it's a measure of association, say between two words, word I and word J, which sets their association to be proportional to the ratio of the joint probability of the two words over the base rate of the two words under the assumption of independence. So, for example, if cat and dog occur more frequently together than they would by chance, then this would yield a high PMI. Whereas if they occurred less than they would by chance, this would yield a low PMI. The main contribution of our work, though, is the dynamic Eigennet algorithm, which is an algorithm for spreading activation in the network. So on the top right, I'm showing you the update equation. So just to set things up, an associative net is characterized by a state vector X and a weight matrix W. And the update function gives you the rule with which you set the next state, the state at the next time point given the state and the current time point. In the previous spreading activation approaches using associative nets, some kind of non-linearity was introduced to make the system stable. But we're proposing an alternative system which is linear, but includes this additional component, which we call the STP, or short-term synaptic plasticity component, which is characterized here by the X naught. The X naught is essentially the original Q, and we increment, we set the weight matrix such, we update those cells corresponding to the original Q in the weight matrix by adding in this outer product term, that's X0, X naught, X naught transpose, which has the effect of stabilizing the spreading of the activation to linger near the Q, as opposed to veering off into the distance within the semantic space. And just to briefly describe the equation, here I have dropped the normalization term, so you can see that the state at the next time point is essentially the projection of the current state over the eigenspectrum, the eigenvectors of the matrix, plus the projection of the state over the original Q, weighted by its similarity to the Q. So if we let E prime max be the primary eigenvector of the W plus X naught X naught transpose term, so that the modified weight matrix, and lambda prime max be the corresponding eigenvalue, then we see that in the steady state, the state of the system converges to the primary eigenvector of the modified weight matrix. So this modification is transient, which means we return back to the original weight matrix once the settling has terminated. So using this approach, we can spread activation within the network and capture some of these induced associations, or essentially facilitate triadic closure. So here are just two examples I found where if you look at the weight between the connection strength between the two words, say rose and cabbage, you have a 0 value. But if you look at the steady state of the network after you queue, say with cabbage, queue with rose, then the activation for cabbage is non-zero, which means these associations are emergent. You get the same kind of thing with eagle and falcon. Here's another more general look we can have at what exactly is taking place during recurrence. So here what I have is, so we had some raters essentially rate a set of word pairs into a set of categories. We can talk about syntagmatic relationships, so these might be between, say, cup and coffee. They occur together in the same context. We can talk about paradigmatic relationships, so this would be between, say, cup and mug. And we can also think about forward and backward association. So for example, jump and rope, that's a forward association, whereas, say, apple to green, that's a backward association. And so here what I'm showing you is the rank with which the other word, say if you queue the system with apple, and you look to see where sweet falls. So the rank of sweet, the word sweet in the activations. The lower the rank, the higher the activation is. So the more dominant that kind of word is in the steady state, which gives you an idea of what kind of information the system is capturing. What's really interesting is that here I'm showing you the steady state activations. That's the dynamic eigennet in red, and the direct associations that's shown in orange. And what you can see here is that the rank of the words activations goes up for syntagmatic and paradigmatic pairs when you run recurrence at the steady state. But it's pretty much the same for forward and backward associations, which suggests that this kind of information, the syntagmatic and paradigmatic information, is emerging online through recurrence during this.
Sorry, almost time is almost up, so okay, you might want to, yeah.
Yep. We also get this asymmetry, which just falls out of the associations between forward and backward. So this is also consistent with the literature. So that's just the general look. So then we took this model and we applied it to the free association data set, which is essentially a large data set where people have been given different cues, say, for example, cat, and they were told to report the word that first came to mind. So we can do the same thing with our model. We can cue it, say, with the word cat, and then look to see the number of times, say, the response that most people produced came to be first in activation. We can also look at the times it came second, third, fourth, and so on. That's the rank. And that is shown on the third column. The second column is showing you the percent of times that the most likely associate, the associate most people produced, was actually the top activation in the system. And the left column is showing you the different models that we've compared. So the dynamic eigennet, that's in boldface, is just trailing a bit behind Wartvec, which has about one additional percentage of first associates and one lower median rank. So here, note that the lower the rank, the better. What's cool though is that we actually fixed this corpus in these simulations to be exactly the same as what Griffith, Stivers, and Tenenbaum 2007 reported. And we get the exact same performance measures as they reported, which is 17, a median rank of 17, and we can do better than that. So we outperform the topics model with the dynamic eigennet.
Sorry, Kevin. Sorry, Kevin. We went over like 2 to 3 minutes, so okay. I'll give you like 30 seconds to just wrap up. Like really fast.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay, great. And so the dynamic eigennet activations are also better than simply the direct association. So recurrence is helping. And finally, we can look at a bunch of word similarity judgments. And here I'm showing you in red the dynamic eigennet. These are the correlations between the ranks and people's judgments. So the lower, the better. And here you can see that the red, that's the dynamic eigennet, is reliably better than the direct association, showing you that recurrence is helping. And finally, if we compare the dynamic eigennet with Wartvec, we can see that although Wartvec is slightly better than the dynamic eigennet, we're getting somewhat close to matching its performance. Although I need to explore some larger corpora.
Yeah.
Okay, and I'll stop there.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Kevin. I think we went over time a lot, so I'll leave the questions. If you have any questions to Kevin, I think we have time after the poster session and so on, so forth. So I'll leave the questions over there. I think it was a little bit hard to explain everything, so okay. I just didn't want to stop you, but I think you could get questions after the poster. Okay.
Okay. Thank you, Youngwook.
Yeah.